Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mildly Gothic, and if you're new here, just a heads up, this is not how my intros usually go. I think this has only happened one other time. This means my editing software was being really slow and I was not able to actually film an intro and get it uploaded to this video in order to release on time, so instead you're getting a little voiceover. So quickly, what we're doing is this is the next installment of my Beetlejuice Sandworm project. I am working to make a Sandworm Puppet, and soon we'll be moving on to the actual suit part of it. And I made so much progress in this. We actually got to painting by the end of it, and they're really starting to look like what they're supposed to. So I'm so excited to share this next installment with you. If you're excited about the rest of this project, please hit the subscribe button. Maybe tell YouTube that you like this video by hitting the thumbs up button. And leave a comment telling me what you think. But regardless, I'm sorry this is just a voiceover intro. This is just in the interest of me actually trying to continue with my schedule. But without further ado, let's get to the project. Once I finally had my materials, I started with the lip for the upper jaw, and I did this kind of the same as the lower one. I didn't have exactly an idea of how wide I'd made the lower jaw since it was already fully attached, so I tried to overestimate it and make it a little wider than I needed to be, and unfortunately I ended up making it a lot wider than I needed to be, but it was okay. I did the exact same thing where I did the rubber cement all the way around that inside connection point, using my heat gun to help shape it where I could, and cutting slits and joining those at some of those more tight bend points, because that snout is a very tight curve, and got it all the way along that inner edge. And once that was set and sealed, I decided to go ahead and get it glued down to the outside edge, again using my heat gun, getting it pressed down, cutting those slits where I needed to, and accepting that it's going to be a bumpy lip. He does not have a perfectly seamless and even lip. It's got some little bumps and wiggles to it because I do believe he was claymation in the original. So it's okay if he looks a little wonky. Wonky is kind of the name of the game at this point. So it was honestly pretty quick going. Once I knew what I had done on the bottom, I was just repeating that for the top lip, so it was pretty smooth sailing, in all honesty. Okay, so I got a little carried away and was not filming. So this is the top half. So we have our full lip. I'm debating if I want to, I have moldable foam everywhere. I'm debating if I want to seal the gaps that I made to form the lip shape. I probably will, just for consistency, to try to smooth them out. He got a little divot in there, but it's fine. Gives him a little character. I think he looks a little dumb, but like honestly, that's kind of the vibe. And so here's both jaws together. So one thing is they don't fully close, which I think is fine. He's considering his mouth is going to be mostly open, so that's about as closed as they get. So what I'm considering doing, I'm debating if I want to give him another set of back teeth. I have them, the ones I picked out for it. I just didn't decide if I wanted them yet. So when I continue the head the rest of the way, I am going to join the lips together, and I'm going to put in some fabric to kind of be a webbing to cover that area. And now that I have kind of the foam joined for the head, I can figure out how I want to deal with the rest of that coming off. So this feels so good to have these two guys done like this, because now, sort of, well, I was thinking now I can prime it. Not really. I think I want to figure out how I want to deal with that coming off. So almost, kind of, sort of, not really. I have to decide how these are going to sit together, how attached I want them to be, and some things like that. But overall, we have teeth and a mouth. It hasn't been sanded yet, but I kind of really like the jagged look it gives it on the inside. It's all the tiny details that like no one's ever probably going to notice, but I think it's fun. Also gave him these like little, when you look at them, these big teeth just stick out sideways. I don't know. I think it gives him an extra little level of stupidity, which we are totally here for. But yeah, all of the teeth are on. Okay, so sometimes my ramblings actually help me figure out what I'm going to do next. So I will describe what's going on. So I have these guys set on top of each other in what I think is basically the neutral position, or rather where, you know, they will rest on top of each other in the most closed mouth position. And so in order to, one, actually attach these, and two, make them look like they're attached, I want to make, obviously, I need to connect them. And one of the big things is his mouth doesn't just connect like this. In a lot of them, he has this kind of weird shape. So this top one's going to slope down to the bottom. And so it's actually not the worst thing in the world that his mouth is pretty open. So I just need to figure out how to get the back of the head to come down and then attach the jaw and make it look like an attached head. I started just devolving into a little bit of gibberish there, but it's fine. I do know that this gap is open, so I may actually cut this so that it's at that seam, so I don't have to deal with a weird little trapezoid piece. I may just cut this even all the way around. And I have my pieces here that I'm basically going to use to connect, as he flops over, that's fine, to connect one lip to the other. Luckily these things are really easy to just get him back. And I don't know when I want to put the eyes in. I think I should probably do that before I fully attach this, but the problem is I want to get most of this foam attached so that I can prime it and paint it. But luckily I will still be able to get my hand relatively in there to be able to glue the eyes in. So I just have to figure out what I want his head shape to look like. So I might use some scrap foam before I cut into, I have plenty of foam now, but maybe I'll get a piece of paper and try to model what I think the back of this should look like, because my hand's gonna be, I'll have plenty of room, so I'm not really concerned. It just needs to come down into like, So yeah, we're getting into actual construction now, but I've got my little side lip pieces. I think these should be plenty big enough for each side, but I do kind of need something to attach it to. So I think I'm gonna do the head first and go from there. Mocking out the design for the back slope of the head on paper was arguably one of the smartest things I've done in this project so far. It allowed me to figure out if I wanted to do it with one piece or two pieces, or just one slit with a sharp angle. Where did I want it to attach to the head? Kind of how did I want to deal with that? Even though arguably things ended up changing a little bit because of some modifications I made to the top of his head, but it was very helpful in figuring out the final shape, where it was going to sit, and all of those kind of little extra details that if I'd gone straight for foam, I might have ended up having to do more work down the line as far as patching in gaps and otherwise. So that modification I mentioned was essentially a skull cap. I noticed when I was trying to fit that back angle piece that his forehead had a weird little bump and it just looked wrong. It didn't sit right. It didn't look right. And so I decided to cut out this tiny little semicircle dome to go on the top of his head. I kind of laid the piece of fabric on top and cut it out. It's not fabric, it's foam, but material. Laid it on top, cut it out into the semicircle shape, and once I had that, I initially tried to use my scissors to cut it at an angle, and that didn't get it nearly at enough of an angle, so what I ended up doing was using my heat gun to heat up the edges of this semicircle, and then kind of just smear it against the table and try to use the flexible properties of the heat to smooth it out and get the edges super, super thin, so that when I laid it down, there was less of an obvious edge to blend in. And this technique actually ended up working out super well. Those edges were still visible, but very blendable with moldable clay foam to an extent that I think they wouldn't have been if I hadn't done that heat smoothing, kind of rubbing it against the table. I literally took the foam and against the table with my thumb and was just pressing it and pulling it out to try to smooth it and make it even thinner on those edges. I used rubber cement to apply it like a skull cap, and it worked great. Unfortunately, the skull cap did mean that I had to pull off the foam that I had kind of mapped out for the back of his head and move it so it attached to the skull cap instead of his original headline, but that wasn't too bad overall. The worst detail of all of this extension of his head was the lip. So I kind of generally mapped out what I thought it would look like and cut pieces of foam that were about the right length and rubber cemented these at specific attachment points as I went, so that I still had control over the final shape, the final look, and the general movement of this thing. I didn't end up cutting any notches other than those corners where the top lip met the bottom lip, and this was all just heat gun and patience and rubber cement to get this bended into the right shape and glued properly. I sum up the construction of the lips as if it was that easy. It really wasn't. The lips were probably one of the hardest and most strenuous parts about trying to get these heads stuck together. I ended up at one point taping the jaws together so that I could ensure that they would not move while I was trying to connect the top to the bottom, because if they moved, I was afraid it was just going to look wonky and mess up the proportions and everything. So I did end up taping the jaws together for structural purposes, and that ended up working out fine in the long run. I did not take any of the movement into consideration when I was making the lips or the head. I am very lucky that that did not end up being a problem, because it very well could have. But luckily, foam is flexible. There's not that much paint or other material on it to compromise the flexibility of the foam. So I was able to still move the puppet, and you'll see that later, that none of this joints or the way that this was constructed ended up impacting the functionality of the puppet itself. Okay, so I think he looks so grumpy, and it's so cute. So I did decide to give him a little skull cap. That bump in his head was just looking a little bit weird. I think that head shape looks so much better. I just have to hope I can blend those edges. So here's the moment. Okay. So I'm having some debates. I have no idea how this is going to hold up to opening and closing the mouth. I hope, well, we will find out if this entire project is about to get scrapped. But what I'm debating is I really want to use, so I have this fabric and it was bought for something else like 2 years ago and I've not used it. But what I want to do is essentially put this in the corner of his mouth to look like webbing and have it be attached. I just don't know what point in the process I should do that, and I'm going to basically attach white fabric from this point on, because I do believe most of this will be covered by, our friend the outside mouth, which is still just cardboard. That one hasn't been messed with yet, because I wanted to make progress here, and I have, and I think that's so great. I just don't know how big this needs to be, because obviously I have it at basically rest position right now, and so however it sits here is the loosest it will be, and however it expands will be the tightest, so I need to make sure that it can bend and move with that. So that's my plan for these corners of his mouth, and I'm planning on also basically putting black fabric on the inside from center to center, so that way you can't see my hand inside manipulating it. Oh, there's little peanut screams in the background. She is far more vocal than Domino. Let's see. So I'm just at a point where I'm deciding if I need to keep the mouth taped shut, or because I don't know how structural this is going to be, or if I can actually open the mouth and like undo the mouth and mess around with it as a puppet. So I'm a little scared, but we'll figure it out, I think. So I'm gonna avoid that. I'm gonna blend the top of his skull, maybe. But maybe this is at a point where I can prime it and do that. So I'm gonna try to blend a bunch of these seams and gaps and some of these, because I was not as careful as I could have been in putting the part of his mouth together, but it's fine. He's a lumpy boy, and I think that's okay. So we're gonna see what I can do to smooth out some of these gaps. Some of them are far more visible than others. But yeah, I have the head, and it actually kind of looks good-ish. If you ignore all of the seams and the freaking surgery it looks like he's had. So that is where we are. Chaos continues, and I'm just trying to figure out what step is next. Because there's so many things that I need to do that I could do, that I just don't know which one is supposed to be next. So stay tuned as we figure that out. Ooh. Okay, so most of the foam, you can see all of the edges just look like he had like a little brain operation. There is foam on all of the different pieces. It was turning and all sorts of, so it was just really hard to film. So moment of truth, I think I'm going to be brave and take off the muzzle. And we're going to see how she does. If I can even get my hand in it. Oh my goodness. So I think with the teeth, it doesn't have quite the range of motion that I wanted, or at least like, such a large range of motion. I don't know that that's a terrible thing. Ooh, and my elastic just popped off. Well, that's part of it. So, if we can also shift it a little bit like that. Ooh. Okay, so there's a little bit of work to do, especially because my elastic just fully came off, and the range of motion will be less because it does default start more open, but I don't think that looks terrible, and the jaws are holding and I think actually flex pretty well. That's not what's causing the lack of movement. It's actually my hand's inability to open wider. The jaws seem to stay pretty aligned, even though they're already not aligned because the bottom is not super even, but that's fine. So I'm gonna re-glue my little elastic in there. And honestly, I think I might be ready to prime this thing. I'm not. I have to wait for that to dry so I can sand it. And then I'll be ready to prime this. So priming this thing is going to be interesting. I have a trash bag shoved up inside the snout, and that's just to protect the elastic and stuff on the inside. I don't know if the primer is going to affect the elasticity of that or anything. This is what I'm using. It's not Plasti Dip, and there's a reason. Plasti Dip is black. This thing needs to stay mostly white. So I've not used this on EVA foam. I don't really know, but it says wood, metal, plastic, and more, so hopefully this works. Because why would I prime it black to then have to just repaint it white? So my thought was if I can get a white primer, that hopefully it'll work. So we're gonna try this primer. Never used it before. I have him kind of propped up at an angle. We're gonna spray him like this, let it sit, and then I will flip it to the other side and spray it like that. So I will let you know. I've also, you can see his little skull cap got sanded down. All those joints should be pretty nice and smooth, so we'll see how this goes. And there's bugs, super helpful. So a quick little update from the inside. As you can see, we've got a lot of things going on. I got some Velcro over here, Sharpie we were marking stuff out on. So here is the outer head, the inside of technically the outer head. And so the way this is going to work is these are now both attached together at the angle that I think the inner head is drying outside, so I can't exactly demonstrate with it, but it's going to sit in here. This is the band that's going to go around my arm, and notice it's only attached to the bottom one. And that's because I think the illusion will work better when it gets up to my arm if the bottom of the jaw is basically the bottom of my arm. So there's going to be this extra space up here by the head. I may kick these like more vertically distant, but keeping this angle to try to make this a bigger tube to be, kind of determined. But how this is then going to attach is I'm thinking Velcro. And the reason I'm thinking Velcro is in order to get this tight enough around my wrist, my hand is not going to be able to get through it. So in order to be able to actually wear this, I need to be able to open and close. Since I'm not currently considering attaching the inner head to this one, I should be able to still get at the inside of this mouth when it comes to actually wearing it. So hopefully that won't be a problem, but that's kind of what I'm thinking, is putting some Velcro on it so it can be open, because clearly there's plenty of space since this top part isn't going to be attached. So this will be open, and then it'll be able to be closed to whatever dimensions, I need. I don't think I'm going to do the Velcro right now, but what this means, now that I have this structure, is it means now I can put foam on this guy and start making this mouth look like the other one. Get the lip in, get all the teeth in, and that's the part I'm super excited for, because that's when this thing will start coming to life. One more thing. I did forget, and I haven't done it yet, obviously. While these are just red, he does actually kind of have a yellow, not exactly pupil. Some show it centered, some show it off-centered, kind of more like a highlight, so I'll probably do it a little off-centered and then figure out how I want to position that in the eyeball. But so yeah, I gotta paint a yellow dot on these, and then I think I'm actually ready to start putting foam on this thing. This contraption was overcomplicated because that's what I like to do. I overcomplicate things for myself, so we're gonna try to not do that and make this something that is actually simple, functional, and I don't know why I said because simple and functional is all I wanted to say. Anyways, I think it's foam time. I do think I might end up excluding a lot of this footage just because it's not the clearest, but I ended up cutting out the top part of the foam for the outer head Much like I did the inside one, I traced out the shape on a flat surface of foam, cut it out, used my heat gun and scissors to kind of mold it to the shape of the cardboard, cutting out the eye sockets where appropriate, and just getting it to fit to the general form. It was pretty straightforward, and honestly, if you saw my previous videos on how I put the foam on the inner head, I did the exact same thing. So if I decided to include previous footage, it'll be pretty obvious that working with this thing in front of the camera is not easy. So I've actually been doing a lot of it with it kind of in my lap. And so you'll see that means I have, again, it's so hard to show, I have the full bottom lip primed out with foam and made sure to preserve that little flick down there at the bottom. The top lip kind of originally had that. I don't know how much of that is going to be kept, and I can probably change that with the lip as well. This method of securing it to the cardboard as I went was like so much easier, and I could actually make sure it stayed in place. I don't know what I was thinking with the first head, but again, you know, lessons we're learning as we go. So, obviously I still haven't attached the Velcro or anything, but I think this already looks so much better than just the cardboard. So working on where to go from here, because I think I want to, I'm not going to do the eyes quite the same way, but I do want to kind of cover and blend to make sure that, you know, you can't see the cardboard through there. But then I think it's pretty much straight on to getting the mouth sorted, although I should probably get the attachment point figured out first, because, you know, that's probably a more important priority. But this is coming along swimmingly now that I actually have my materials. So we're rocking it. Even though I now had all of my materials, meaning I had plenty of that very thin foam that I used for the outside of the head, I did choose to use a thicker foam for the inside of the mouth, just like I had done on the inner head, for some sort of consistency reason. I don't know, it really doesn't matter, no one was going to be able to tell, but it just kind of made sense. I still have scraps and extra of this thicker foam, and it works really well, and was very supportive of the teeth and the pressure that I needed to mold the moldable foam into kind of those gum structures. So I stuck with that for the outside head as well, and I used the thicker foam for the full inside of the mouth. I did the lip the exact same way as I showed previously with the bottom jaw, upper jaw of the inside head, so none of that really changed, except I learned a lot, and I think the outside head went much more smoothly because of everything I learned from doing the first head. Sorry if you can hear the dishwasher, it's very, very loud. So I've decided now that I have the lip on, I want to work on the teeth. And so I wanted to math out how many teeth I had and kind of how they would fit. So I laid it out and I came to a total of 10 teeth for one side. So then I was like, well, how many teeth do I have? So here's, I don't know, this is sort of in frame. 10 teeth for one side, 10 teeth for the other side, 10 teeth for one side of the top, assuming it takes the same number of teeth, and then only 5 teeth. So luckily I'm not short by too many teeth, but I'm gonna just start on the bottom and pair up the teeth and make more when I get to it. But making progress, for real. There was no rhyme, reason, or logic to how I decided to orchestrate the teeth in the lower half of this mouth or the upper half. All I did with the teeth that I had remaining is I tried to match them up in pairs of similar size and shape, and so the only logic that kind of went into it is each pair of teeth I wanted to be close-ish to the other. So the tooth on the fourth spot of the left side of the mouth was the same-ish size and shape as the tooth in the fourth spot of the right side of the mouth. That's all that went into it. Otherwise, it was playing a just guessing game of, that looks like it'd be a good next tooth, and I went from there. Okay, so I'm holding the phone, and this is right upon teeth completion, so there is stuff everywhere. This is the sheet that I used as the base for the primer, because this head has been fully primed. I think I'm going to give it a few more coats. I'm so happy I put the skull cap on there. But look at this guy. Look at him. Ah! Obviously, I haven't done any of the gums yet, and there's kitchen noises going on, so I'm sorry. But I'm so freaking excited. It's starting to feel like this wasn't such a crazy idea after all. So this thing continues to be a nightmare to film. As you can see, I have done the moldable clay foam around the edge and all inside the gums. And yes, my craft area is a mess. If you want aesthetic crafting, this is not the channel. I literally have a playlist called Chaotic Crafting. there's a reason. I do believe this project qualifies. So something you'll notice if we stare down the mouth here is some of those teeth curved a little inwards. And so what I'm going to do once the moldable clay foam dries around the gums is I'm going to hit them with the heat gun and try to coax them to, and I can't really point because I'm holding this thing with one hand, try to coax them to go outwards. I did originally have another set of teeth in there. You can see the rubber cement from it. But when I tested holding this on my arm with the inner head, it actually knocked those 2 teeth out. And so I figured it was just best that they be left as sacrifices to, you know, the project. So I don't think it's going to look too open because I'm going to do some connecting stuff here. So hopefully that kind of will fill that out nicely. But yeah, there's the gums from above. There's some of the teeth. It's really just some of them. You can also see how some of them are tilting inwards. But I think the teeth look pretty good on this one, and I'm balancing it up. This one is much harder to work on for some reason, even though it's still a complete jaw. I think this one's a lot more concave, like curved, than the other head, the inside, the actual puppet head was, and so I'm definitely having some problems with that. But while I was waiting for that to dry, I did this, because I forgot his eyeballs aren't actually just all red. They have a weird little yellow dot on them. So my plan is to kind of put that up because I want the outer head to look as derpy as possible because I think it's going to be cute. Am I calling a giant puppet with teeth cute? Yes, I am. I love this thing so much. I think the sandworm is just weirdly adorable. So anyways, that's where we are. I still have to finish the seams and get those adjusted on the side there. Get the gums done for the teeth, and then add some extra support to make sure that the wrist cuff is going to hold this head at the proper angle. And when I'm done with the teeth, that's what I'm going to do next. I hope this video is not giving people motion sickness. I'm so sorry if it is. It's just, I kind of have to hold this thing. I use a mic stand to hold my camera over the table, and it only goes so tall. So this thing is a monstrosity to film, but it's coming along nicely. We have one set of teeth done, and on to the next when these dry. Alright, so another little update is I have gone through, and I swear this looked better in person a second ago. I bet it's just the angle light. I've done the same thing I did to the other head, which is over there, and I put the moldable clay foam all around the inside so you can no longer see the cardboard edge separation from the foam. I've also marked out some lines on the side where I think the head is going to cut off because this one has a very convenient feature of the eyes are a section of white or one color, and then the immediate neck section is black. And so I can I'm planning to use the white foam to my advantage and cut off the eye, like that portion of the head very specifically, and start the fabric portion of the body from there. I've also gone and done the foam all the way around the top lip and all on the inside teeth. One thing I am considering, if you look here, now, and this doesn't show up nearly as much on camera. So in person, I think it's pretty obvious to see the break in the foam. So I'm half debating if I want to be a chaos goblin and completely cover the inside of all of the mouths in a super, probably not the inside puppet because I can't really get into that mouth anymore, but this one's going to be really visible. And so I'm kind of wondering if I should do moldable clay foam on the inside of all of this just to like give it a texture and so that it all blends in. Should I do it? I don't know. Camera doesn't know what to focus on. But he looks really, really cool. And once I get this foam sanded down and all of it sorted, I want to work on the support for the wrist as far as wearing it. But then he's primed and I'll prime this one. And honestly, I might paint them, or I'll at least figure out, because I think this needs to be painted before I glue the fabric into that one. We'll see. We'll figure it out. And then I have to figure out the arm, tube, sleeve. Anyways, there's a lot of things to figure out, but we are making really good progress. These are the tedious details that I don't know that anyone's going to be able to see, but hopefully that's the point, and all of these seams will be nice and patched up and you won't see them, and it'll make the final product look that much better. So as you can see, we are back to a familiar face with a little bit of a new thing. So what I have here is part of 3 pieces that are going to hopefully help hide my hand from the people who aren't me. I don't know why I was going to say the general public. I mean, that's kind of what I mean. So I had to make sure it's contact cemented in. So I had to make sure it hit, it had the full range of motion when I fully opened the mouth. And the mouth does open wider than this. However, the way it's currently set up, I can't physically open it wider than this, just due to the teeth kind of preventing it from being fully closed. I can't, you know, I can only open it physically so wide. So, but I still made sure that I can get basically this full range, and so it's not going to get caught, and it just kind of compresses in or sticks out a little bit when his mouth is closed. I think it looks fine. It is contact cemented in. This is where it's going to be hard to see. Oh, you can kind of see at 3 points. So there's 2 just along the side of the lip, literally just to the inside here, right where the inner part of the mouth meets the outside here. And then the last one is here to keep this fabric glued down. This fabric is, I don't remember. I bought this forever ago for something. It's coarse. It's a thin, I don't know, it might be an organza. I don't fabric type. It was pretty and I bought it. This was intended for another project and I have so much of it. I'm not going to miss just these few little pieces. So what I did is I double layered it so that I folded it in half so that I would get this smooth edge and I wouldn't have to worry about sewing or seaming anything. I would just get a nice smooth edge as the front of my lip. And I'm debating, I have some really interesting iridescent paint. And so I'm thinking about trying to paint that on this so it looks kind of glossy and almost wet, like the inside of the mouth. And I have one that's blue toned, which would go with the blue color that the lips are going to be. So I just wanted to talk about how I did the inside corner of the mouth. As you can see, I haphazardly cut off a rectangle. It is not my finest cutting. I am going to probably put a little bit more rubber cement on the full inside and bottom just to make sure this thing is, maybe not on the bottom because since it looks like that's where it gets a little bit of movement, but definitely a little bit more on that just right there to make sure that's really good and stuck. And I'm going to repeat the same thing on the other side. The last piece that is going to help me hide my hand, if I have my fabric somewhere. All right, so we have a piece from an old t-shirt because I just keep clothing. This old t-shirt I kept because it had these really pretty decals on it, and so I cut those off, and now I just have a black t-shirt. I'm going to put this in the back of the mouth, like that, so that way the back of his mouth just looks black and you can't actually see my hand or anything back there. But I wanted to get the side pieces of the mouth figured out first so I could figure out the profile of how that black was gonna go. So that's where we are. I'm switching to working back on this head because I'm waiting for some more moldable clay foam bits to dry on the other one so I can sand him down. Speaking of, I think his skull cap looks great. I think when I paint it, I think it's already harder to tell now, and I think when I paint it, it'll look even better. So if we want to talk paint real quick, just because I can. So the way he's going to get painted is this is going to be a nice pretty teal, and he's going to get some pretty bright reddish pink spots on the front of his nose, going to some lighter pink spots on the top of his head. And his teeth, I'm going to yellow them out a little bit. And then the inside of his mouth is going to be all sorts of bright pinks and reds. So that's kind of what I have planned for that. Once I get all the fabric glued in to the inside of the mouth, then I will probably put the eyes in and figure out how I want to do that, because the last step is attaching fabric to the back of the head so that I can basically have that sleeve sock thing and wear it properly. A fun issue I've been having with this head is making sure it's like even when it lays, because the jaw actually got skewed like sideways for a little while because of the way I had it laying down. But I'm going to go ahead and put this other piece in the side of his mouth and then figure out how to do the black fabric and then probably put the eyes in. So we are getting there. Attaching the fabric for the side of the mouth was relatively simple once I figured out kind of the apex of its opening, like how wide it would be at its maximum. I attached the 2 side points at that maximum, and then I attached that back corner kind of when it was at its rest position, just so that it would, stay there and not go too far into the mouth and kind of hold it in place. Overall, that was pretty straightforward and very easy. I did use rubber cement for the eyes and kind of put it along that inside of the eye socket on both the top and the bottom. I put a very thin coat on the outside of the eye, very kind of higher probably than it really was going to be, but it worked. Let it get dry and tacky so it wouldn't smear across everything, and then tried to gently put it in place which is so much easier said than done. So we've had an incident. The sandworm decided it wanted cataracts in one eye. This is, what is the name for this? Rubber cement over one of the eyeballs. It was originally fully glued in there. You can see the remnants of the cardboard on the back that was painted black. I had to rip it out of there to free my eyeball because this took a little while to paint and I would like to keep it. Because the way I'm choosing to glue this in is contact cement initially, and then I was going to go in on the inside. And, like, it's so hard to see. I'm so sorry. There's no good way to film this. And get in on the inside there and add some extra glue in there. But that means that's the gap I have to shove them into to try to get them in place and not smear glue all over the outside, which, as you can see, is easier said than done. So, also, ideally would recommend wearing gloves for using contact cement. I am not. You probably should. It's not the safest thing to be touching all of the time. So, I am going to paint a new cardboard circle and glue it into a new dome. Luckily, this came in a pack of several. I just have to find them, but I've got plenty of these. That's not a concern. Glue up the new eye, and then not sit it in there tonight since it doesn't want to cooperate with me. But I got both of those pieces because I realized my plan was stupid to put the black fabric. Well, I guess no, the eye opening should still be accessible. I don't know, the geometries and the way that this thing works together escapes me sometimes because it makes my brain hurt to figure out how all of these things work together. Because the inside geometry is clearly not what's on the outside, but once I get the eye set and the black piece in there and the fabric attached to the back, which is what I wanted to do tonight, but not since I'm going to have to wait for this to dry. But once all of that's done, then I can paint it, and that'll give me something to focus on instead of connecting and properly securing the outside head, which is probably totally what I should work on next. But anyways, new eye time. Not new painting eye, just new little encasing for it. Alright, so we still only got one eye in. Got the black fabric in there because I am just a little dumb and I can still get into the top eye cavity. You can see the missing eye from there. So, but all that does is now it is black in the back of the mouth and you won't see my hand. I may take some moldable clay foam and cover up some of those just like little exposed pieces of the mouth and kind of cover it up as a little bit more gums. But for the most part, I'm really happy with it. It is cracking a little bit where I have been, because I've been forcing the mouth open wider than I can actually open it physically, just to make sure that if the fabric happens to need to stretch that wide, it can. And it is uncovering some structural problems, so I may try to reseal those up. The sides here have cracked, but I don't think that's as big of a problem, or going to be as obvious, so I'm not very concerned about that. But I'm going to let everything that's happened in the back of this head here sit and dry because I am still waiting on, did I lose the other eye? Nope. Still waiting on this clamshell to dry before I can pop it in there. But we are making progress on getting this thing fitted to be a puppet. So I've been in a groove doing things, so voiceovers have been a little lacking. But I have all of these bits sanded. I did not put foam on some of the seams, and I'm not entirely sure why, and I'm debating if I want to do that. I'm getting so much better at placing the foam down and also then sanding and blending it away. Something else you'll notice is I painted the inside of these eye cavities black, and that's because of something I noticed on the other head. So we have two eyeballs in now, and yes, they're at different points in the socket, which I don't think look bad if you're looking at him from either side. But it does mean he looks really derpy if you look at him head on. So I don't really know what to do with that. I don't necessarily want to take them out and re-glue them. Especially, I've also added some black fabric in there. It's really hard to tell, and that's kind of the point, to just kind of fill in the rest of those eye sockets and make it so you can't see the inside. It's kind of going to be hard to see. You can see vaguely there's some moldable clay foam placed at those junction points of where the fabric joins the mouth to kind of continue the gum line and obfuscate that just a little bit. And I think that looks really good. The more I stare at it, the more I want to pop that eye forward. We'll see. But again, his eye sockets aren't even anyways. That one was already more forward, so I think his eyes were destined to be a little lopsided. I don't think it looks like bad from either side. It's only noticeable when you stare at him head on. which is how most people might be staring at the puppet, but you know what? Maybe when it's fantastical and everything's put together, you won't be able to notice. So this is what I mean when he sits lopsided. That's the way I don't want him to sit, so I try to make sure he sits the other way so that his jaw aligns a little bit better. So next steps. I have put a little bit of glue kind of around the base of support of this, and it actually, just a few places of glue, E6000 helped this so much. So I think I'm going to do some more, and I'm even considering taking out some of the tape support now that there's an initial bit of glue and fully gluing the rest of it to make sure it's like super, super solid. I butchered some foam. This is foam that I'd originally bought to use. It's like cushion foam. You're supposed to make chair cushions out of it. You can buy like a pack of 4 of these little squares at Walmart for pretty cheap. I butchered it in half. You can see these used to fit together. They are now half. It was a mix of box cutter and scissors. But I'm going to put this on the inside to kind of make this a little bit more cushiony for my hand, and I might wrap this in some fabric. And this is going to close like that, and I'm going to use Velcro on that. But I needed to get... Domino is drinking some water, but I needed to get this secured and stable so it would kind of stop wiggling as much before I put the Velcro on, because I want it to be set and stable and know that I knew that this was going to sit. So other things that are going to happen to this head, I do think I'm actually almost at a point where I can glue the eyes into this one, except not, because I forgot I have to paint and prime it first. So I want to fill in some of these gaps on the inside here with foam, and I think I'm going to do, excuse me, not as dramatic as this, but I do think I'm going to put just a little bit of cloth in the corner of his mouths, just to kind of connect the two and make them look a little bit more cohesive. But before I do that, I'm going to fill in the foam gaps and then get this thing primed, because once it's primed, I can start putting the fabric and stuff in and not have to worry about it, and, you know, finish out. Then I can attach the fabric and all that other stuff. So we are moving right along and building our little sandworm. So I think he looks so freaking cool and crazy. And this closeness is why I don't want to put too much fabric in there. I want you to still be able to see this guy. So there is some cracking and stuff that I've noticed, and I've patched a few places. I might go ahead and patch that because that's actually visually bothering me a good bit. But yeah, we are chugging right along. And finally, at long last, I get to paint it. So I made a custom mixture of the blues, and I actually have a video on how I mixed that color that I'll play for you in a second. But I ended up doing 4 coats of this teal across both heads. So the inside mouth got 4 coats of teal on the top and bottom lips, and the outside head got 4 coats of teal across the top and bottom lips. The biggest issue in this was trying to make sure that I did not get too much onto the head, like the head proper, the main body of it, because most of the head is white, and while the white paint can do a decent job of covering the teal, it's not going to do the best because it's white and underneath colors are going to show through. So this was a labor of love and tedium and patience, and let me just say it absolutely paid off. Since I need one more coat of paint for one of the lips, I thought I'd do a little thing on how I mix the paint. So I just have this Craft Gear acrylic paint, and this is the base. One, because I have the most of it, as it makes lovely sounds. And so part of the reason I didn't use this as the base color is I do think it's a little bit too light. And so then I have these 2 different just kind of generic acrylic paints. This is in ultramarine blue, and we want a good bit of that. And then the thing that really helps sell this color is the Viridian Green. Viridian Green is already kind of naturally a little bit of a teal, and so we add a good bit, or whatever we're going to quantify that quantity as, to this. And that is quite a bubble we got there. And we're going to mix this up. So there's a few reasons I don't use just the small tubes of paint as a base, and it's because I don't have that much of them. And there's a reason I don't use the big tube of paint by itself, and it's because it's never really that pigmented. The large containers of paint, for whatever the reason, are very watered down, it seems, acrylic paint. They're very, very thin, and so I just don't think they've ever really worked the best. The colors just they almost work more like watercolor than they do acrylic paint. So, and then I just kind of mess with the ratios of these colors until it looks about right. I think it's almost there. However, I am going to add just a little bit more of that green to get it a little bit more into that correct color tone. So I think the color I've mixed does tend to lean a little bit more green compared to what some depictions of the sandworm are, but I want it to lean into that teal, so I quite like it. I think that looks about right. And so, yep, we're going to go ahead and add one more coat of paint. Okay, so what we have here, and the more I look at it from above, the more his eyes are a little lopsided, but you know what? He's fine. So what I have is I kind of sketched out, so one, we have the lips fully done, and I think they're quite even. I think they're about as even as I'm going to get them. That's about 4 coats of paint, so I think I'm just going to be happy with that. And I have kind of marked out his dots, and this may look like a lot, but I'm planning to do a bright red kind of to a light pink. And I know a lot of depictions don't really have him with pink dots on his head, and I'm kind of taking that as an artistic interpretation. Partially to just kind of help add some more texture to the top of his head, so it's not even in frame. So that the texture that's already there just kind of hopefully kind of blends in with all of the dots. So these are the, hi buddy, good job, flopping over. So these are the 3 colors that I have, and as I kind of mentioned previously, these paints are not known for super strong pigments. So what I think I'm going to do is mix a little bit of this crimson red in with each one to kind of tonally bring them to the same level, and then also add a little bit more pigment to them. And this is not necessarily the end-all be-all of where these spots are. I may not paint all of them, and the ones I don't, I'll just paint over in white, and I may add more once I decide that I'm happy with where they are. But I think I'm going to start with the red ones, the bright red ones, and I think that's mostly, I don't think I'm going to do an ombre, so I'm not going to like mix the colors, but I just think I'm going to start like red dots, and then around here some of these are fuchsia, I think, magenta maybe dots, and then some pink dots towards the back of his head. So that's kind of the goal and plan. We'll see how much of this I film versus what I show you later. So let's get to painting. So to paint these dots, I picked a long and kind of rounded brush because it was going to allow me to get into those points of the oval shapes in less strokes than a flat brush would have. And as quickly as I had said I wasn't going to do an ombre, that's exactly what I ended up doing. It was easy with how I had the colors kind of just in the tray to add the next color and kind of just mix it and use it and kind of just keep going between the colors. So at the end, I had this little paint tray of all 4 of the colors that ended up becoming like 6 different distinct areas of color because of all of the zones of blending between them. And I slowly painted each one of these dots. I didn't end up following my dot pattern exactly. I do think it ended up being a little bit busy, but at the same time, I really, really love it. These dots, like, he looks straight out of a cartoon. I'll show you in the end picture because I do have all of them finished. This is just kind of how I got them started and what that whole process looked like. But that means this is in fact serving as the end audio of this video. If you have made it to this point, thank you so much. You are incredible. I'm so happy that you chose to spend this time with me instead of doing anything else. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope I've made you as excited and interested about this project as I am, because I cannot wait for the next installment. And I can't wait to share it with you. So please subscribe and stick around if you'd like. Comment below what you think of this project. And with all of that said, I will see you in the next one.